All right, ladies and gentlemen, time to rock and roll. We are diving into parallelograms. Our goal in this chapter is going to be to use properties to find side lengths and angles of parallelograms. And at some point, we're going to start proving quadrilaterals are parallelograms. We're not quite there yet. In this video specifically, we're going to define a parallelogram. And overall, we are going to discuss 3 of the 5 unique properties of parallelograms. So let's first and foremost define a parallelogram. Break down the name, all right? It is a parallelogram. So what is the key term in there? Parallel, right? So we have a quadrilateral in which both pairs of opposite sides are parallel. BC is parallel to AD, and AB is parallel to BC. And so I'm going to go ahead and just say that the first characteristic here, is by definition that the opposite sides are parallel. So that is our first characteristic of our parallelograms. Let's continue on with 2 other ones by the time this video is over. First up, let's talk here about the sides. We know that the opposite sides are parallel, but because it is a parallelogram, we also know that the opposite sides are congruent to each other, and we call that the parallelogram opposite sides theorem. Opposite sides are parallel. So far, we know 2 characteristics about the sides. Opposite sides are parallel, and opposite sides are congruent to each other. The third and the final one of this video that we're going to discuss is that the opposite angles are congruent. Opposite angles are congruent as well. We call that our parallelogram opposite angles theorem. So let's recap. Opposite sides are parallel. We know that opposite sides are congruent, and we have discovered that opposite angles are congruent. And we're going to use those in application here for today. So let's take a look at an example first and foremost. It says find the values of x and y. Well, what do we know? We know it's a parallelogram because both pairs of opposite sides show those parallel arrows on it. Then I know that opposite sides are congruent to one another, meaning that x plus 4 is the same value as 12, determining that x has a value of 8. Since it is a parallelogram, we did learn that the opposite angles were congruent to each other, meaning that y was equal to 65 degrees. Let's take a look at a couple other ones. We see here again, it says it's a parallelogram, so just because it didn't give us the arrows, it does tell us that they are parallelograms. So meaning that 75 and this angle L are equal to each other as well. So 75 is equal to 2x minus 1. So really in the end, we have 76 is equal to 2x. And when we divide by 2 on both sides, we see that x equals 38. Okay? All right, and then one more as we wrap up here. QR is congruent to TS due to the fact that, once again, this is a parallelogram, so I set them equal to each other and see that y equals 15 when I add over my 4 to both sides.